Why do some people make friends easily, while you feel something strange every time you need to meet new people? If you've ever avoided parties, said no to hangouts, or simply prefer being alone rather than talking to strangers, Carl Jung has an incredible discovery about what this really means. It's not just shyness. It's not only being a quieter person. And it's definitely not something wrong with you. Jung discovered that our difficulty in making new friends shows something much deeper about our mind, a hidden truth about who we really are and what our soul is trying to tell us. This difficulty might actually be important protection, a wisdom that lives inside us that few people can understand. What you're about to discover here can change everything about how you see friendships, how you know yourself better, and what the real meaning is of being alone sometimes. Jung shows us there's a deep psychological reason why some people choose their friendships carefully, and this reason might be the key to you being more yourself. Deep inside your mind lives something Jung called the inner guardian, a part of you that watches over your emotional and mental energy like a loyal protector. This isn't some mystical concept, but a real psychological force that every person carries within them. When you feel that strange resistance to meeting new people, it's this guardian speaking up, telling you something important about what your soul needs. Think about how you feel after spending time with different types of people. Some leave you feeling drained, empty, like someone sucked the life right out of you. Others make you feel energized, alive, more like yourself than before. Your inner guardian has been paying attention to these patterns your whole life, learning which kinds of people help you grow and which ones hold you back. This protective mechanism isn't being mean or antisocial, it's being smart. Jung understood that not all human connections are good for us. Some people carry negative energy that can cloud our thinking, lower our mood, or make us act in ways that don't feel right. Your inner guardian recognizes these energy vampires from a mile away and creates that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach when you're supposed to be social. But here's what most people don't understand. This guardian doesn't just protect you from bad energy, it also saves your good energy for the right moments and the right people. Every time you choose not to waste your emotional resources on empty small talk or fake friendships, you're keeping that energy available for deeper, more meaningful connections that actually matter. Jung believed that highly sensitive people often have the strongest inner guardians. If you're someone who feels things deeply, who notices the small details in how people behave, who can sense when someone is being fake or dishonest, then your guardian is working overtime. It's not making you antisocial, it's making you selective, which is completely different. This selectiveness isn't a weakness or something to fix, it's actually a sign of psychological health. People who can make friends with anyone often struggle to form deep, lasting relationships because they never learn to listen to their inner wisdom. They say yes to everyone and wonder why they feel empty inside, why their friendships feel shallow, why they're always surrounded by people but still feel alone. Your inner guardian also protects your authentic self from getting lost in other people's expectations. When you meet someone new, there's always pressure to be likable, to fit in, to show them the version of yourself that they want to see. But your guardian knows that this kind of performance is exhausting and ultimately fake. It would rather you stay true to who you are, even if that means having fewer friends. This protection system becomes even stronger when you've been hurt before. If you've had friendships that turned toxic, relationships that betrayed your trust, or people who took advantage of your kindness, your inner guardian remembers. It becomes more careful, more cautious, more willing to say no to new connections that might lead to the same pain. Some people think this makes you closed off or difficult, but Jung saw it differently. He understood that wisdom often looks like resistance from the outside. When you trust your inner guardian, you're choosing quality over quantity in all your relationships. You're saying that your peace of mind is more important than being popular, that your energy is more valuable than other people's approval. The guardian also protects your creative and spiritual energy. Jung noticed that people who spend too much time trying to please others often lose touch with their own inner voice, their own dreams, their own path in life. By limiting your social circle, you keep more space in your life for self-reflection, for pursuing your passions, for listening to what your heart really wants. This doesn't mean you should never make new friends or that you should live like a hermit. It means you should trust that uncomfortable feeling when it shows up. Instead of forcing yourself to be social when every fiber of your being is saying no, try listening to what your inner guardian is trying to tell you. Maybe it's warning you about someone's energy, or maybe it's telling you that you need some alone time to recharge and reconnect with yourself. Understanding your inner guardian changes everything about how you see your social preferences. Instead of feeling guilty about not wanting to meet new people, you can appreciate this as a form of self-care. Instead of thinking something is wrong with you, you can recognize that you're simply more aware of your own needs and boundaries than most people. Your guardian isn't holding you back from life. It's helping you create a life that actually fits who you are. Everyone around you seems to have learned the same social script: how to smile at the right moments, what to say to make small talk, how to laugh at jokes that aren't really funny, how to pretend interest in things that bore them. But something inside you rebels against this performance. Jung called this performance the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society, and your refusal to wear it says something profound about your relationship with authenticity. Most people put on their social mask so automatically they don't even realize they're doing it. They become slightly different versions of themselves depending on who they're with. More cheerful with some people, more serious with others, always adjusting their personality to match what others expect. But you've never been comfortable with this shape-shifting, and that discomfort is actually a gift, even though it doesn't always feel like one. Jung understood that the persona serves a purpose. It helps us navigate social situations and avoid unnecessary conflict. But he also knew that some people pay too high a price for social acceptance. They wear their masks so often and for so long that they forget who they really are underneath. They become so good at being what others want them to be that they lose touch with their own authentic desires, opinions, and feelings. Your resistance to putting on a social mask means you value truth over comfort, authenticity over approval. When you meet new people, you can't help but be yourself, the real you, with all your quirks, opinions, and genuine reactions. This makes some people uncomfortable because they're so used to interacting with masks that they don't know how to respond to someone who's being real. This authenticity often makes forming new friendships harder because not everyone is ready for genuine connection. Many people are looking for surface-level companionship, someone to chat with, hang out with, share activities with, but they're not prepared for the deeper emotional honesty that comes naturally to you. They want the comfort of predictable social interactions, not the intensity of real human connection. Your refusal to wear a mask also means you can spot fake people from across the room. While others might be charmed by someone who says all the right things, you notice the disconnect between their words and their energy. You see through the performance to the person underneath, and often what you see doesn't match what they're presenting. This ability to see behind people's masks can make social situations feel exhausting because you're dealing with multiple layers of pretense. But this gift of seeing through social masks comes with a cost. It means you often feel like an outsider looking in, watching everyone else play a game whose rules you understand but refuse to follow. You see people bonding over shared performances rather than shared truths, and it can make you feel lonely even in crowded rooms. You wonder why everyone else seems so comfortable with superficial connections while you crave something deeper. Jung believed that people who struggle with social masks are often called to a different path, one that prioritizes inner development over social success. Instead of learning to fit in better, you're meant to go deeper into yourself, to understand your own nature more fully, to develop your unique gifts and perspectives. Your discomfort with social masks is your psyche's way of pointing you toward authenticity rather than conformity. This doesn't mean you're antisocial or that you think you're better than everyone else. It means you're wired differently, with a stronger need for genuine connection and a lower tolerance for pretense. You'd rather have one real conversation than 10 fake ones, rather spend an evening alone than surrounded by people wearing masks. The challenge is learning to navigate a world where most social interactions involve some level of performance without losing your authentic self in the process. This might mean finding creative ways to be genuine within social expectations, or it might mean accepting that you'll always be somewhat of an outsider in mainstream social circles. Your refusal to wear a social mask also attracts certain types of people. Those who are tired of superficial connections, who recognize authenticity when they see it, who are hungry for real conversation and genuine friendship. These people might be rare, but when you find them, the connections tend to be much deeper and more satisfying than typical friendships. Understanding your relationship with social masks helps explain why making new friends feels so difficult. You're not just looking for someone to spend time with. You're looking for someone who can handle your authenticity, someone who doesn't need you to perform or pretend, someone who appreciates the real you rather than some watered-down version designed to make them comfortable. This awareness can be liberating because it helps you stop trying to force yourself into social situations that require too much masking. Instead of fighting your nature, you can embrace it and look for people and situations that allow you to be genuine from the start. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the SIM Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Hidden beneath your reluctance to make new friends lies a fear so deep you might not even recognize it. The terror of losing yourself in other people's expectations and demands. Jung understood this fear intimately because he saw how easily people could be swallowed up by their relationships, becoming pale copies of who they used to be. Your resistance to new friendships might actually be your soul's way of protecting the most precious thing you have. Your true identity. This fear isn't paranoia or selfishness. It's based on real experience and observation. You've watched people change when they get into new friend groups, seen them adopt different opinions, different styles, different ways of speaking. You've noticed how some people become chameleons, shifting their entire personality depending on who they're with. And something deep inside you recoils from this possibility. Maybe you've experienced this yourself in past relationships. You remember times when you found yourself agreeing with things you didn't really believe, laughing at jokes that weren't funny to you, or pretending to enjoy activities that bored you just to fit in. You remember the slow, uncomfortable feeling of becoming someone you didn't recognize, and you never want to go through that again. Jung called this process psychic infection. The way we unconsciously absorb other people's moods, opinions, and behaviors without realizing it's happening. People with strong personalities can be especially influential, and if you're naturally empathetic or sensitive, you might be more susceptible to this kind of influence than others. Your fear of making new friends could be your mind's way of avoiding situations where you might lose yourself again. This fear becomes even stronger if you've spent years figuring out who you really are. Maybe you've worked hard to develop your own opinions, to understand your own values, to know what you like and don't like. The thought of potentially compromising this hard-won self-knowledge for the sake of new friendships feels like a betrayal of all that inner work you've done. You might notice this fear most strongly around people who seem very confident or dominant. Something inside you recognizes that these types of personalities could easily overwhelm your more subtle way of being in the world. You sense that spending time with them might mean constantly defending your right to be yourself, or worse, gradually giving up pieces of your identity to avoid conflict. This fear also shows up around groups rather than individuals. Group dynamics have a way of creating pressure to conform, to go along with the majority opinion, to suppress individual differences for the sake of group harmony. Your reluctance to join new social circles might be your intuitive understanding that groups often demand a certain amount of personal sacrifice from their members. But here's what Jung discovered. This fear, while understandable, can become a prison if you let it control your life completely. Yes, relationships do change us, and some of those changes aren't good, but complete isolation to protect your identity isn't the answer either, because part of who you are can only be discovered through connection with others. The goal isn't to avoid all influence, but to learn how to maintain your core self while still being open to growth and connection. The key is developing what Jung called a strong ego. Not in the sense of being arrogant, but in the sense of having a clear, stable sense of who you are that can't be easily shaken by outside influences. When you know yourself deeply, when you're secure in your own values and preferences, you can engage with others without fear of losing yourself because you have something solid to return to. This fear of losing yourself also reveals something beautiful about your character. You value authenticity so highly that you'd rather be alone than be fake. You'd rather have no friends than friends who require you to be someone you're not. This isn't stubbornness or pride, it's integrity. You understand that there's no point in connections that force you to abandon yourself. Your fear might also be protecting something creative or spiritual in you that needs space to develop. Jung noticed that people who are meant to contribute something unique to the world often need more solitude than others. They need time away from other people's opinions and expectations to hear their own inner voice clearly. Your resistance to new friendships might be your psyche's way of preserving this creative space. Learning to work with this fear rather than being controlled by it means finding the balance between protection and openness. It means getting better at recognizing which people and situations actually threaten your sense of self and which ones might help you grow while still honoring who you are. It means trusting that you can maintain your identity even while forming new connections, because you now understand what you're protecting and why it matters. While the rest of the world seems to fear solitude like some kind of disease, you've discovered something they haven't, that being alone can be one of life's greatest pleasures and most valuable experiences. Jung understood this deeply because he spent much of his own life exploring the rich inner world that only becomes accessible when we step away from the constant noise and demands of other people. Your preference for solitude isn't loneliness, it's a sophisticated form of self-care and spiritual practice. In your alone time, something magical happens that never occurs when you're with others. Your mind settles, your breathing deepens, and you finally have space to hear your own thoughts without interference. You can feel your authentic personality emerging like a flower opening to sunlight after being cramped in a small pot. This experience is so nourishing that the thought of giving it up for more social time feels like a genuine loss. Jung discovered that solitude is where we do our most important psychological work. It's where we process experiences, integrate new learning, and make sense of our place in the world. When you're constantly surrounded by other people, your mind never gets the chance to sort through all the information and emotions you've absorbed. You end up living on the surface of your own life, never diving deep enough to understand what's really happening inside you. Your solitude isn't empty or boring, it's full of rich experiences that social people never discover. You might find yourself having profound realizations about life while taking a quiet walk, or feeling deeply connected to something larger than yourself while reading a book alone. You might discover creative ideas that bubble up from somewhere deep inside when your mind isn't occupied with social chatter. These experiences are so meaningful that they make most social interactions feel shallow by comparison. This treasure of solitude also gives you a different relationship with boredom than most people have. While others panic at the first sign of having nothing to do and immediately reach for their phones or call someone, you've learned that boredom is often the doorway to something interesting. When you allow yourself to be bored without immediately trying to fix it, your mind starts to wander in creative directions, making connections it never would have made otherwise. Your comfort with being alone also protects you from making desperate social choices. You've never felt the crushing need for companionship that drives some people to accept toxic friendships or stay in relationships that harm them. Because you genuinely enjoy your own company, you have the luxury of being selective about who else you let into your life. You can wait for people who truly add value rather than settling for anyone who's available. This relationship with solitude has probably made you more self-reliant than most people. You've learned to entertain yourself, to solve your own problems, to find meaning and joy without depending on others to provide it. This self-reliance is both a gift and sometimes a barrier to new friendships, because you don't need people in the desperate way that creates instant bonds. Your neediness level is low, which can make you seem aloof or uninterested to people who are used to more clingy social dynamics. Jung also understood that solitude is where we connect with what he called the collective unconscious, the deeper layers of human experience that we all share. In quiet moments alone, you might find yourself thinking thoughts that feel larger than your individual mind, or having insights that seem to come from somewhere beyond your personal experience. These moments of connection with something greater are deeply spiritual, even if you don't think of them in religious terms. Your appreciation for solitude might also come from an intuitive understanding that your energy is limited and precious. Social interactions, even good ones, require you to spend emotional and mental energy. By limiting your social commitments, you keep more energy available for the things that truly matter to you: your creative projects, your personal growth, your spiritual development, or simply the pleasure of moving through life at your own pace. But here's something important Jung discovered. The goal isn't to become a hermit who never connects with anyone. The goal is to develop such a rich inner life that your external relationships can be chosen from a place of abundance rather than need. When you're truly comfortable alone, you can engage with others from a position of strength rather than desperation. You can offer your authentic self to relationships rather than trying to get something from them. Your treasure of solitude also gives you a different perspective on what friendship should be. Because you don't need constant social stimulation, you can appreciate the deeper qualities in people, their wisdom, their kindness, their authenticity, rather than just their ability to entertain you or make you feel less alone. This makes you a better friend to the people you do choose, because you're not using them to fill an empty space in your life. The world keeps telling you that popular people with huge social circles are the winners in life, but Jung discovered something completely different, that having fewer, deeper friendships often leads to richer, more meaningful relationships than trying to be friends with everyone. Your natural tendency toward a smaller social circle isn't a limitation. It's actually a sign of emotional intelligence and a deeper understanding of what real friendship means. Think about the math of relationships for a moment. Every friendship requires time, energy, and emotional investment to maintain. If you spread yourself too thin across dozens of casual friendships, you end up giving each person only a tiny slice of your attention and care. But when you focus your friendship energy on just a few people, each relationship gets the full benefit of your loyalty, understanding, and genuine interest in their lives. Jung understood that depth always trumps breadth when it comes to human connection. One friend who truly knows you, who understands your struggles and celebrates your victories, who you can call at 3 in the morning when life falls apart. That one friend is worth more than 50 acquaintances who only know the surface version of you. Your instinct to keep your circle small is actually your wisdom recognizing this truth. People with many friends often complain about feeling lonely, even when surrounded by others. They have plenty of people to hang out with, but nobody who really gets them. They're always performing, always being the version of themselves that each friend expects, never getting to just be authentic and accepted. Meanwhile, people like you who choose quality over quantity often report feeling deeply satisfied with their social lives, even though they have fewer connections. Your selective approach to friendship also means you become incredibly good at being a friend. Because you're not juggling dozens of relationships, you can really pay attention to the people you care about. You remember the important details of their lives. You notice when they're going through hard times. You show up in ways that matter. Your friends know they can count on you because you're not too busy managing a massive social network to be present for them. This focus also allows your friendships to develop the kind of depth that takes years to build. While other people are constantly meeting new people and starting over with surface-level conversations, you're going deeper with the friends you already have. You're building the kind of relationships where you can sit in comfortable silence, where you can disagree without it threatening the friendship, where you know each other's history and dreams and fears. Jung noticed that people who prefer fewer friends often have what he called old soul qualities. They're more interested in meaningful conversations than small talk, more drawn to lasting connections than exciting but shallow encounters. They understand intuitively that the best relationships are like good wine. They get better with time, but only if you give them the attention and care they deserve. Your approach to friendship also protects you from the drama and complications that often come with large social groups. When you have 30 friends, you inevitably get caught up in conflicts between different people, gossip chains, and the exhausting politics of group dynamics. But when you keep your circle small and choose your friends carefully, you avoid most of this unnecessary stress and can focus on actually enjoying your relationships. There's also something to be said for the loyalty that develops in smaller friend groups. When someone knows they're one of your chosen few, they tend to value that relationship more highly. They invest more effort in maintaining the connection because they understand it's special and rare. This creates a positive cycle where both people put more energy into the friendship, making it stronger and more satisfying for everyone involved. Your selective nature also means you've probably avoided many of the friendship disasters that plague people who say yes to everyone. You haven't wasted years trying to make incompatible relationships work, or gotten burned by people who turned out to be using you, or found yourself stuck in toxic friend groups that drain your energy. Your caution has protected you from a lot of pain and disappointment. Jung also understood that people who prefer fewer friends often have rich inner lives that require protection. If you're creative, introspective, or spiritually inclined, you need time and mental space to nurture these aspects of yourself. Having too many social obligations can crowd out the solitude you need for personal growth and self-discovery. Your small social circle leaves room for the relationship that might be most important of all, the one with yourself. This doesn't mean you should never be open to new friendships, or that having many friends is always wrong, but it does mean you should trust your instincts about what works for you. If you're happier and more fulfilled with a small circle of close friends rather than a large network of casual acquaintances, that's not something to fix or change. That's something to celebrate and protect. Understanding why fewer friends can mean more helps you appreciate your own approach to relationships instead of feeling pressured to be more social. You're not missing out on anything important by keeping your circle small. In fact, you might be experiencing something deeper and more satisfying than people who are always busy with social obligations but never feel truly connected to anyone. While everyone else seems content with surface-level connections, you've seen something they're missing: the hidden costs of shallow friendships that look good from the outside, but leave people feeling empty and disconnected on the inside. Jung understood that not all relationships are healthy, and your instinctive avoidance of superficial connections might be protecting you from psychological harm that most people don't even recognize they're experiencing. Shallow friendships create a particular kind of loneliness that's almost worse than being alone. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't really know you, who interact with a cardboard cutout version of who you are rather than your authentic self. You smile and laugh at the right moments. You participate in conversations about topics that don't really interest you, and you leave every social interaction feeling more isolated than when you arrived. Jung discovered that these surface-level relationships often prevent people from developing genuine intimacy skills. When you're used to keeping everything light and easy, you never learn how to navigate the deeper waters of real human connection. You never develop the courage to be vulnerable, the patience to work through conflicts, or the wisdom to offer and receive genuine support during difficult times. You become socially active, but emotionally underdeveloped. These shallow connections also create a false sense of security that can be dangerous. People think they have a strong social support system because they know lots of people. But when real crisis hits, they discover that none of those casual friends are equipped or willing to provide meaningful help. The busy social calendar becomes meaningless when you need someone to listen to your deepest fears or help you through a genuine emergency. Your resistance to shallow friendships might also come from recognizing how much energy they waste. Every superficial conversation, every fake smile, every social obligation that doesn't really matter. These things drain your emotional batteries without giving you anything meaningful in return. You end up spending hours of your life performing friendships rather than experiencing them, and your soul rebels against this waste of precious time and energy. Jung also noticed that shallow friendships often involve a lot of competition and comparison, disguised as camaraderie. Friends compete over who has the better job, the nicer house, the more exciting vacation, the more perfect family. These comparisons create constant anxiety and insecurity, making people feel inadequate even when they're supposedly enjoying time with friends. Your avoidance of these dynamics protects your mental health and self-esteem. There's also the exhausting work of maintaining a social image that comes with having many shallow friendships. You have to remember which version of yourself you presented to which people, what stories you've told, to whom, what opinions you're supposed to have in different groups. This constant management of multiple personas is mentally exhausting and spiritually depleting. You lose track of who you really are underneath all the performance. Shallow friendships often lack the authenticity that makes relationships nourishing. People share good news and happy moments, but hide their struggles, fears, and vulnerabilities. This creates connections based on incomplete information. You're bonding with edited versions of each other rather than whole human beings. The relationships feel unsatisfying because they're missing the depth that comes from knowing someone's full story. Your instinct to avoid shallow connections might also be protecting you from the emotional manipulation that often happens in surface-level social groups. When relationships lack genuine care and understanding, people sometimes use friendship as a tool to get what they want: attention, favors, social status, or emotional validation. You might have noticed this pattern and decided you'd rather be alone than deal with people who see relationships as transactions rather than genuine connections. Jung understood that shallow friendships can actually interfere with personal growth and self-discovery. when you're constantly focused on fitting in with others, presenting an acceptable version of yourself, and maintaining multiple social relationships, you have less time and energy for the inner work that leads to real wisdom and maturity. Your preference for solitude or deeper connections creates space for the kind of self-reflection that leads to genuine personal development. These surface-level relationships also tend to be fair-weather friendships. They're great when everything is going well, but they disappear when life gets complicated. People who build their social lives on shallow connections often find themselves alone during their darkest moments, discovering too late that their busy social calendar was built on relationships that couldn't handle real intimacy or genuine need. Understanding the dark side of shallow friendships helps explain why your soul rejects them so strongly. It's not that you're antisocial or difficult. It's that you intuitively understand the difference between connection and performance, between friendship and social networking. Your resistance to shallow relationships is actually a sign of emotional intelligence and a commitment to authenticity that serves you well, even if it sometimes makes you feel like an outsider in a world that often prioritizes quantity over quality in relationships. As you've journeyed through Jung's insights about friendship and solitude, perhaps you're beginning to see your own resistance to making new friends in a completely different light. What you once might have seen as a flaw or limitation might now reveal itself as a form of unconscious wisdom, your psyche's way of protecting your authentic self, preserving your precious energy, and guiding you toward the kinds of connections that truly nourish your soul. The question isn't whether you should change this aspect of yourself, but whether you're ready to embrace it fully and discover what gifts it might be hiding. In a world that often confuses quantity with quality, your preference for depth over breadth isn't something to overcome. It's something to celebrate, understand, and transform into conscious wisdom that can guide you toward a more authentic and fulfilling way of living. Maybe the real question isn't, why don't I like making new friends, but rather, what is my soul trying to teach me about the kind of person I'm meant to become? The answer to that question might just change everything about how you see yourself and your place in this world.